God, I'm getting so old. Shit, hi, how's it going? Welcome back to Collector Creations. In this beautiful video, we're going to look at Hooptober XI 11. Oh my god, I just scratched my glasses, god damn it. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So, last year, I did my first ever Hooptober, which was Hooptober X. And I wanted to utilize it as a way to watch films that I had, for the most part, never seen before. I don't think I rewatched any film last year, and if I did, it was just out of probably desperation, but I can't remember. I'll double check what my list was because it's worth noting. Wow, for Hooptober 10, every single film I watched I had not seen before, which is good. This year was different. For Hooptober 11, I did a mixture. So we have 31 films. You had a categories that you had to fulfill, which was 6 countries, 8 decades, all of the films from a horror franchise with at least 4 entries. If there's a hard reboot, you can choose whichever has 4+ that you prefer. 1 by Wes Craven, 1 that film that is caused by or worsened by weather, 1 starring a black woman, 1 Donald Sutherland film, 3 New World Pictures films, 2 Indian films, 4 Italian films, 2 horror comedies, 2 films made primarily or entirely in Texas, 1 film that exists in at least 2 available cuts. You can watch 1, or you can watch both if you want the bonus. 1 Robert Wayne film, 1 Michel Salvi, Michel, I'm pretty sure it's Mitchell, it's Michele, Salvi film, great me pronunciations. Anyway, it's Italian. 1 film from 2011, 1 film from 1984, and 1 Tobe Hooper film, because Hooptober is based entirely on Tobe Hooper. It's October, Hooptober. There you go. Because people don't understand what I say when I say Hooptober. People thought I meant Spooktober, and I said, no, that's a different thing. Because that one, there's no rules, I don't think. It's just, I'm just Spooktober watching a bunch of horror films. Ooh, spooky. Anyway, there's not too much prowess there for me because I watch a bunch of horror films all throughout the year. I don't reserve them for Halloween. But, obviously, there was a list of films. So these are all the films in chronological order, including my star ratings. Oh god, it's going to be one of those. If you've seen, hopefully this video will come out before my What I Watched in October video, but of course I will be touching on these in my What I Watched in October videos, but to a minor extent. So we started off with Witchfinder General from 1968. I gave it 4 stars. This is a Michael Reeves film starring Vincent Price. I got the new 88 Films 4K release in. It was stunning. It does have 2 versions, hence this was my film with 2 different releases, because it's called like there's something earworm, or I don't know, something about worms. Either way, I didn't watch the alternate cut. I was planning to, but I was like, look, I either do or I don't. It doesn't really matter, but I want to get through the films. I gave it 4 stars, really liked it. Very different to what I expected, because I'm used to a lot of both Hammer films and of course Vincent Price films, even though this was not a Hammer film, being cheesier. This was not. This was like, hey, what if shit kind of sucks? So, yeah, but really nice film. I followed that up, and that was also a film from 1968. I'm not going to dwell too much on the years that they came out, or the, the ones that applied to that list, or the countries list, just because that was a generalized thing. I never specifically say, this is one film from that year, unless it's like that 1984 one, or the 2011 one that needed to be from a specific year. If I can just cover a general 1980s, 1990s, 2000s kind of thing, like a decade, or same with a country, then I just write it that way. So that obviously covered a few things, from like, it's a, film with 2 cuts, it's a film from the 60s, it's a film from the UK, whatever. I just barrel them all together as much as I can. It just makes it easier. So, my next film was Species. This was part of the 1 of 4 films from a franchise, from a series of films, which did mean I had to watch Species 1, 2, 3, and 4, which I did in succession. I got the 88 film set. I really should have watched Critters instead, but this was a good way for me to make sure I watched all of them, because holy shit. The first film I gave 2.5 stars. It's from 1995, directed by Roger Donaldson. I was not a fan. It's okay. The creature designs are interesting. The visual effects are god awful. 95 CGI, yikes. And the idea is kind of too bland for me. The characters never really clicked. There's just a lot of misfires in what is a decent concept of a, low budget sci-fi film that has H.R. Geiger's bloody alien effects. Well, at least he did the design for the alien creature, so hence it looks very mechanical and organic at the same time. So there are some pros, there are some cons. Of course, Natasha Henstridge is interesting as Syl. I liked Marge Helgenberger as well, and she was really cool. And I liked Alfred Molina. Forrest Whitaker's in it, which is really bizarre. He just can he's an empath, and I'm pretty sure they did not know what an empath was when they wrote the character. So yeah. Anyway, it's fine. It ain't great, but I got the set on sale, so that's good because it only goes downhill from... No, wait, it doesn't. Oh, okay. Species 2 from 1998, directed by Peter Medak. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I really liked this one. The concept was a lot better executed. The effects was great. They had a lot more practical effects over digital effects. It's basically like 3 astronauts go to Mars and they dig up a bit of Earth, and then it kind of defreezes when they're on the ship, and it has something in it that infects them. And it goes from there. It gets really... the main kind of bad guy is a male, and of course the whole thing of these species films is it's basically heavily sex-based. And of course he has sex with 2 women he shouldn't have, and the first one he has sex with immediately gets pregnant, and then just... it is horrific, and I was like, holy shit. Beautiful effects, terrifying concept, wonderful execution. And it goes from there. One of the people who gets infected is also a woman, so has its own thing. This one has the characters in this one are much more fun. It does have 2 characters from the first film, as well as the girl who plays Syl, who now plays, I think, a character called Eve in this one. She's Eve in this one. It's a different version. It's a clone. Either way, I like the look, I like the feel. I liked a lot more of this film than I did the first film. It just felt like a better execution and just made more sense in a way. It got more graphic, crazier shit happened, and I was all on board for it, so I really enjoyed it. But then it goes really bad. We got Species 3, which is directed by Brad Turner. It's almost 2 hours long, which is ridiculous. It's such a pain to get through. I gave it 1 star. It was abysmal. It's a really bad sequel to the third film. It kills off the character of Eve from the first film, and then it's just got another character, and it's just bad, sci-fi channel original movie. Ugh, it's low budget as shit. It looks like crap. It's very boring. I hated it. It's also really, 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 really long. Almost 2 hours long. But it was one where I believe that's the one where they went to No, the next one they went to Mexico. Holy shit. Species, The Awakening from 2007. 98 minutes long. Benefit. They go to Mexico in it, and they have none aliens. It's bizarre. There's some interesting ideas. The third and fourth one do have some ideas that try to progress the lore, and I like the fourth one's usage of it because it works a lot better. But they're also very PG, so there's not hardly any blood or gore or violence or sex or nudity, whatever the first 2 films had. These films don't really have. They're, again, sci-fi channel original movies. I gave the fourth one 1.5 stars. I was like, it's better because it's shorter and it has a better idea and execution than the third one. So the third one's the weakest for me. But I wouldn't recommend any of these films. The second one, yes, and realistically, if you can get the Scream Factory versions of the first and second one, go for it. The 88 film set has great special features. But that's the benefit of it. Unless you can get it for cheap like I did. I think I got it for $20 or $30, which is really good. It's during one of those sales. I'm like, I'll get the Species films. I've heard mixed things. We'll see what it's like. So, I can't say it was a waste of money, but a waste of time. If I hadn't have done this for Hooptober, I would have turned off the third film. I would have been like, this is awful, I'm not watching this, and I wouldn't have watched the fourth film. So, at least Hooptober pushed me to finish watching it. That is a common occurrence. On the next film I watched was Salem's Lot, because I had to watch a Toby Hooper film, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I had never seen it before. I had a Sunday to myself, put it on, and was just like, man, this is great. It just slowly builds over the 3-hour runtime, because it is a TV movie, basically. And it's beautiful. I loved the characters, the atmosphere, the visual look of it. I was like thinking at first, this doesn't... I'm touching the mic again. I did that in a previous video because I can't see it. It's right there. I'm trying to fix up my brain necklace. Oof. Look at me wearing jewelry. Anyway, yeah, I was like, this doesn't feel like a Toby Hooper film. And then as it kept going, it felt more and more like a Toby Hooper film. It was basically like what if Texas Chainsaw took 3 hours, and it's really, really fun. Great effects, great visual work. The smoke, love it. 10 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. Anyway, the next one I watched, I did a double feature on one day for Hooptober, because the 1st of October I actually watched. I started this in September, at the end of September, the 24th, because I knew if I started on the 24th, I can end it on the 24th of October, my birthday. So for the 1st of October, I went out to watch a film at the IMAX and didn't have time to watch a Hooptober, so I double featured the night before. Smart. I watched The Slumber Party Massacre. This was a rewatch, but it was a film. What was the benefit? This was a New Worlds Picture film, 1 of 3. Also, it was the 4K, and I hadn't seen the 4K yet. I gave it 5 stars. I really liked it the first time I watched it, about 2 or 3 years ago, but this time I loved it. I'm like, this actually gets really tense at the end, because I'd forgotten what happened in the second half of the movie, and I was like, I don't get scared by slasher films, but I found this one really tense, and I really liked it. It's also really funny. It's got some great characters. The villain is really interesting. The kills are great. The 4K looks masterful. So, worth getting 77 minutes. 77 minutes. Oh, perfect. Going from a 3-hour film to a 77-minute film is kind of crazy. But then I went to watch Slumber Party Massacre 2. I wasn't a fan. I gave it 2.5 stars. This is directed by Deborah Brock. The first one was directed by Amy Holden Jones. Yeah, I had seen the poster. He has this like drill guitar. It's a musical. I was expecting more of both. Instead, it's just this kind of weird, bad rock film. Like, the girls with their rock band is fine, but then him singing his songs, it's just awful. I wasn't big on it. I didn't like how they incorporated it. I didn't like how it took 50 minutes until the blood and gore happened. It was just... She had occasional dream sequences, which are either flashbacks to the first film or flash forwards to what's going to happen, and then all that stuff just happens because the guy just comes out of a dream. I was not a fan of that. I didn't like how they executed that at all. I think it was also it was under my horror comedy label for number 1 of 2 of that, which... Anyway, let's move on to another film. I might like it more on rewatch, but it just wasn't clicking for me. Anyway, the next film I watched was the Robert Wayne film, which was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the Eureka 4K release, which was a standard dynamic range release, which I didn't realize at the time. But either way, this had a bunch. This was like Decade 7 of 8, Country 4 of 6, the Robert Wayne film, all that stuff. This one I gave 5 stars. I love the look of it. I love the feel of the film. I was very distracted whilst watching the film for many, many, many reasons. My grandfather died that day, and I still had to watch my Hooptober, and also, to be fair, I needed to distract myself. I chose the one film that I probably should... Like, I didn't want to watch a horror comedy, but I didn't have the... I wasn't into something that I wanted to... that was brand new. Like, I needed something that was familiar. I chose a silent German film by a guy called Robert. My grandfather's name was Robert. He was German. The coincidence. Yeah, because it's silent, like, during a lot of just the musical cue stuff, I just, dwelling on things. But I was still there watching the movie. It was weird. It was like an out-of-body experience in a way. Nevertheless, beautiful film. Really interesting day to have watched it on, to be just frank. But yeah, so that was something. The next one I watched was Crawl. This was, of course, the something about the weather, wasn't it? A film caused by / worsened by weather. I also was able to punches his country 5 out of 6 for Serbia, which just was really funny to me because it's like, Serbia? That film's set in Florida. Yeah, they don't actually film that film in Florida. This one I rewatched, I gave it 4 stars. I think I've given it more each time I've seen it, because I think the first time I saw it back in 2019, I gave it 3. I don't know, it was 3 than 4 than 4. I really like Crawl. It's quick, it's tense, interesting characters, great effects to some degree. I don't love the alligator crocodile. I think it's crocodiles at the start of the film, but when they're in the water, they really work. I just don't like seeing their whole body unless they're in water. It just doesn't work for me as well. But I just love the gore. I love just the grab the person, brings them in. There's so much stuff that I'm like, I can't wait for that moment to come up when it grabs the guy and he's holding onto the door, pulls him in. Bites him in half. 10 out of 10. Love it. It's good. I like Kaya as well. She's great. The next one I watched was this was the Michel Salvi film. I don't remember who that. I think he's a producer. Yeah, he was the assistant director on this film. It's Demons, by the way, because all the other films he had, well, like, they were all ones I'd seen before. Like, you got Phenomena, you got Tenebrae. He directed a bunch of films which I don't have any of them, so I was like, well, shit, I gotta do something. He starred in Opera, in City of the Living Dead, The New York Ripper. He wrote a bunch of films as well. So there was a bunch of stuff that he had been in that I hadn't seen and didn't own or have any access to unless I probably streamed it on Tubi. But I was like, look, I've got Demoni. I've been wanting to rewatch Demoni for a while. I got the 4K in like 2 years ago and I still haven't watched it. So I watched the 4K because I had the previous Blu-ray release. And then I went to Demons 2, but Demons 2 I had the 4K. But this was great. Gave it 4 stars. Love the concept. Love the execution. The demon effects are wonderful. I hate the stuff with the cocaine-fueled punks. So unnecessary. It helps the ending of the film, but it doesn't benefit when they just keep cutting between. Like, the claustrophobia gets lost immediately when you start cutting to the outside world. Just randomly watching some punks they're literally punks, that's why I'm saying that, in a van. It's not great. Anyway, then I decided to watch a film I hadn't seen. I watched Bad Taste. This is, of course, the infamous directorial debut of Peter Jackson. This had no specifications to it in terms of why I watched it. It was on YouTube, so I watched it. I gave it 3 stars. It's alright. It's very messy, but it gets there in the end. The final act is pretty fun, and clearly they got a budget for the final act, but not for the rest. But it's fine. It's an interesting piece of New Zealand history, something I'm still exploring slowly as time goes on. So, of course, the smart thing I did the next day was watch Brain Dead, which I'd never seen as well. This, again, I think, this was my horror comedy 2 of 2. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I was like, I know I make that sound like so surprising because it's like I gave Dr. Caligari also 5 stars, but this one I'd never seen before, and I was just like, this is everything I've always wanted in a movie and more, and it just kept giving you more, and I'm like, what the fuck, when will this film stop? And it didn't, it just kept going. This was the uncut version that was on YouTube, wonderful. I really wish this film would get a 4K release, it would look stunning. Highly recommend this film, it's one of my favorite films I've seen this year. It was just, I cannot believe I hadn't seen Brain Dead yet. Even my mate was like, fuck, I thought you saw Brain Dead years ago. I'm like, nope. What a day. So, that was great. Anyway, the next day I watched Children of the Corn from 1984, which I think was a twofer. It was my film from 1984 and a New World Pictures film, 2 of 2. There were 4 films I was going to watch that were New World Pictures films. I cut one out because I ended up watching the Slumber Party Massacre was New World Pictures. So I was like, sure, I'll have that be the New World Pictures. I'm pretty sure that was what it was doing. Or maybe it was Children of the Corn was the additional one. That was the 1984 film, and because it was New World Pictures, I figured, I'll just chuck it in there. Fuck it, why not? But yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. I did quite enjoy it. I'd never seen any adaptation of this. I've never read the book, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I liked the style. The visuals were nice. It's the Arrow 4K, which looked really good. Yeah, I was impressed by the film, but not completely wowed by it, because there's clearly some limitations to what they could have done. But no, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. Again, it's clearly a man. If this had a really bigger budget, it would have been great, but it just didn't. And so far, what I've heard is that they have never been able to make a good Children of the Corn film. And I have the trilogy set from Arrow, so I'll take what I can get. I realize I've stopped crediting directors. No, I mean this was Fritz Kirsch. I realized it was Peter Jackson for the other ones or whatever. Anyway, then I watched. Wait a second. This wasn't. Was this on my Hooptober? Oh, it was. I was meant to watch From Dusk Till Dawn, which I thought was partially. I read the prompt wrong for Texas. I didn't realize it said films primarily made or entirely made in Texas. I thought it meant set primarily or entirely. So I went for From Dusk Till Dawn, realized, oh, this isn't that, like, it's like 40, 50 minutes. Half the film is set in Texas, less than half. The first half was filmed in California, the second half in Mexico. This is not a Texas movie. It's set in Texas for the first half, but it was filmed in California. So that didn't help. So instead, I watched Friday the 13th from 2009, because I got the new 4K in, had the killer cut, which I don't even know if I'd seen before. I had seen potentially the theatrical cut on streaming. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not a big fan of this one. This is one of my least favorites of the Friday films, which sucks because the concept of it is great, the execution is great, like the kills are great, the over-the-top violence, the over-the-top sex, all that's great. But you know what sucks about the movie? You can't see shit. It's so goddamn dark, you can't even see the visual references that they're pulling from previous films. Like, this is very Friday the 13th Part 2, and I love that film. And it has so many visual references to that, and you just can't see it, because the image is so dark. And this is a new 4K from Arrow, and I still couldn't see shit. I'm like, this sucks. This would have been a great film if you could at least see it. So, that was a big standby in that I didn't like it because of that reason. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the next one I watched was Scary Movie from 2000, directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans. Did I mention Marcus Nispel did Friday the 13th? Anyway, this one I gave 2.5 stars. It was a rewatch. Got the Blu-ray set in. This was the day of my grandfather's funeral. I wanted to watch a comedy, and I was like, look, this is the film I had that was starring a black woman, because, of course, I was here for Regina Hall, and she is great. The film, I did watch the first 3 in the end, not for Hooptober, but I much prefer the third and fourth films. The third one's great, the fourth one's really fun. I didn't like the second one at all, but they had nothing to do with it. That's in my what I watched in the month video. Anyway, on the next one I watched was a Indian film. I double featured 2 Indian films over 2 different days. I watched a film called Asvins, which was 110 minutes long. I didn't like it. I gave it 1.5 stars. It was on Netflix. I don't have Indian horror films. I've never looked into it before. And there were definitely probably better ones on Netflix, but they're all 2.5 hours long, and I was not in the mood. So yeah, I watched this one and it sucked ass. The first 10 minutes were interesting, and then it just went downhill from there. But I'm committed. This is directed by Tarun Teja Malareddy, which is surprisingly, maybe still probably pronounced it hella wrong, but phonetically easier. Anyway, yeah, not great. Too many drone shots, too long, too stupid, bad movie. Then on the next day, I watched one which was worse, somehow worse. I thought this one would be better because these 2 films had great concepts. The first one is like a bunch of like YouTubers go to an old mansion to film a spooky video, and they accidentally unleash a 15,000-year-old, god and whatever, like demon or whatever. None of that shit happens. It's stupid. It sucks. The next film I watched was Ludo, from 2015, directed by 2 people, Nikon Basu Quayshik. I want to say Quayshik. It's Qaushiq Makhiji. Like I said, I'm not great with pronunciations for these names. I gave this film 1 star. It was 90 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. It sucked shit. It was very rarely scary. It only just considered itself a horror film because of the blood and gore effects. The whole last half an hour of the film is literally let's tell you the origins of these characters. It's boring. Stupid. Waste of time. Do not watch it. So thankfully, maybe this is what impressed me so much the next day. But the next day I watched Kill Baby Kill, which is the Mario Bava film from 1966, which I hadn't watched yet. So that was great. This one, because that was my 2 Indian films done, this was Italian film 1 of 4. And you're probably thinking, Julian, isn't Demoni an Italian film? Yes, it is. I didn't consider it in my Italian list. I didn't want to. I don't know. I didn't need to in the end. Loved Kill Baby Kill. I gave it 4.5 stars. Beautifully visual gothic horror, which I'm not huge on gothic horror, but this was just perfect for me. So definitely recommend Kill Baby Kill. Stupid name for the movie. I mean, it's iconic, but not great. But it's, yeah. Anyway, I'm apparently one of 4 people who have given this next film 4 stars, because nobody has given it 5 or 4.5 or 3.5. Holy shit, I'm one of 4? No, that's with my friends. I had my friends' ratings up. That's crazy. What the fuck? Okay, I'm one of 8,300 people. Some people have given this film 5 stars. You're probably thinking, okay, what's this next film that some of your friends have not given 4 stars to? Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022, directed by David Blue Garcia. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked this. Again, I watched it on Netflix. Would have loved to have seen, if this was filmed in 35 and actually screened in the cinema and then had a 4K release, I would have watched it. I never watched it when it came out because all the news was bad, and I was like, well, I've never seen a Texas Chainsaw sequel, so I'm not going to bother. I had seen, since then, Texas Chainsaw Part 2, which I am not as fond of. I gave it like 3.5 when I watched it initially. Need to revisit it. I think this one's better. I really like this. I like its visual style. I like its characters. It's 83 minutes of just get in, get out. Yeah, sure. Characters are annoying. A trauma from a school shooting. A lot of shit that people find hot topic crap that they don't like now. I don't care. I dug it. Characters that are annoying? Cool. Kill them off. What's the other thing? The girl who has trauma? Actually a really interesting character. I like the way they incorporated that into the story. I love how they brought back the legacy character, different actress, which I found was hilarious, and then they just butchered her, and I'm like, fuck yes, this movie's great. So yeah, I did like some of the callbacks. The final scene I hated. Like, the last scene and the post-credit scene were just so unnecessary, even though they'll never make a sequel, so it's very unnecessary now for the post-credit scene. Didn't like the final scene where if you've seen it, you know what happens. If you haven't, one of the 2 remaining characters gets killed, like pulled out of a self-driving car, and the main character is stuck in the self-driving car trying to get out of the sky window, whatever, screaming as she's going away, and Leatherface cuts off the girl's head and just does his little dance. Exactly the same as the original film, with the girl screaming as it drives away, but with a slightly different context of, no, you've killed my only ever friend, who's my sister, and now I have to come back for revenge. That'll never happen. Didn't like it. Sucked. The rest of the film, though, loved it. So, it'll never be perfect, but I enjoyed it. It was amusing. Then I watched You're Next, which was Adam Wingard's 2011 film for my 2011 film. Obviously, Texas Chainsaw was the film primarily, or whatever, in Texas, because fucking of course it was. It's Texas in the name. Your Next was really fun. This was the 4K from Second Sight. I hadn't seen it before. Really liked it. Turns out I like most of Adam Wingard's films. I'm so on Blair Witch and so on Death Note. I actually didn't mind Death Note, but obviously it's still not great. But Blair Witch was like, eh. But all the rest of his films I really like. Obviously, I love the horror films he's done with The Guest, and there was another one that he did, I swear to God. I haven't seen the VHS ones, Jesus. Actually, that was it. It's just The Guest. Anyway, but I like the Godzilla and Kong ones as well. I gotta watch the VHS ones. I like the Godzilla and Kongs. Anyway, I gave it 4 stars. Good 4K, really fun film. Aussie character, gotta love it. Then I watched Rabid from 1977. This is the David Cronenberg film. This was another New World Pictures one. It doesn't have the logo on the front, but it is produced by them, like, distributed after the fact. Anyway, I gave it 3.5 stars. It's from the 101 Films Black Label release, I believe it was. Nice restoration fun Blu-ray, fun film. I didn't expect a pandemic film from Cronenberg, but it works really well. It's a good, serious enough pandemic film that has an interesting way of showcasing it while still having the Cronenbergian little armpit monster thingy. Anyway, pretty fun. Part of my 1977 list. Gotta love it. Then we watched Clute from Alan J. Pakula. This was the Donald Sutherland film, parted from the Criterion Channel, because I didn't have the Blu-ray. I had watched a bunch of Donald Sutherland films earlier this year, including like his main horror ones, and unless I was to like try to pirate a film or something, because it was like one of the horror film that he did in like the 60s, either way, I watched this instead. It's definitely a thriller, so not an explicit horror, but it's like a murder mystery thriller, which was really nice. It got really tense. Jane Fonda, terrific. Sutherland is amazing in it, so really worth it. I gave it 4.5 stars, so I would very much so recommend this as well. Then I did my Wes Craven film, which was The People Under the Stairs. I gave it 4 stars. I actually watched it twice because I watched the commentary track like the next day, I started it that day, finished it like a couple of days later. Because apart from the Viavision set that I have this in, my old lecturer, Craig Martin, did the commentary for it, so that was really good. But the film itself was really interesting, has a great visual style. I love the practical sets and everything. The characters are really interesting. It's just got a great vibe to it, good social commentary, all kinds of great stuff that Craven just was really good at. So yeah, I hadn't seen it before, so I was really happy about that. So there's a lot of Cravens I'm yet to watch, so I'm just taking my time. Anyway, it's a good one. Then I watched Messiah of Evil from 1974. This is Radiance's release. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't so big on it. Again, this was a gothic horror that I just wasn't in love with. I'm very hit and miss for gothic horror. Sometimes I can just like Salem's Lot and Kill Baby Kill was like, this is my kind of gothic horror. But then watching Messiah of Evil, I'm like, I love the like Lovecraftian vibe, and I like the visuals and the scene in the cinema I loved, and a lot of people like the scene in the shopping supermarket, which was also nice. But I love the cinema sequence, but the last act was pretty good, but I just wasn't big on it, and I was kind of a bit bored during most of it. So I gave it 3 stars, but I watched the documentaries afterwards, so I've got more of a headspace appreciation for its existence, but I'm yet to update my review. I'm like, I will probably rewatch it, and if I like it a lot more on the second watch, then I'll give it a higher star rating, because I've got friends who adore this film, so it's just what it is. Then I watched Demonia from Lucio Fulci, the most recent film I have of his. I think it's his third last film. But yeah, this was my second out of 4 Italian films. I gave it 2 stars. It just wasn't good. It wasn't worth watching. I don't hate that I have it. I'm like, okay, sure, but it does have the release I have has the Fulci Talks doco, so I'm like, that's a benefit at least. The Arrow video release is nice. It's a nice restoration. It looks good. It's just not great. It just kind of really sucks. It's really stupid. So to rectify that, I watched another Mario Bava from 1977 with Shock, which was his final film, which I didn't realize until after I watched it. And I really liked that as well. I gave that one 4 stars. Apparently people are a bit iffy on it sometimes, but I loved it. I think Daria Nicolodi, amazing performance, her best performance. That's like the Italian equivalent of like Toni Collette. She's exceptional in this film. It looks great, it's fun, it's exciting, it's scary, it's a ghost film, but you can still see the strings sometimes, so it's got some, stuff to it. It's got some kick. I liked it. Again from Arrow Video, of course. And then my last Italian film was Two Evil Eyes, co-directed by Dario Argento and George A. Romero. This one was not... It was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't huge on it. It's not Second Sight. It's Blue Underground's 4K release, so it looks stunning. I didn't like the Romero part at the start. I was like, the effects are great, but the story sucks. And the characters were like, eh. But the second half, the Argento part, I liked more. I still think, who was it? Harvey Keitel was really weird in it. I liked the references to the other Edgar Allan Poe stories, because it's based on 2 Edgar Allan Poe stories. And again, I liked the effects in the second one, but just as the story was getting good, it ends, and I'm like, oh, this kind of sucks. So, yeah, they could have easily made a better final act for the Argento one, and then made it a solid 90-minute film, or even an 80-minute film. but instead they had a whole Romero section, and it kind of sucks. So it's okay, but it's just not great. Then, for the hell of it, because I was basically done with my checklist, I watched Exorcist 2. I hadn't seen Exorcist 2 yet, so I had just gotten in the Arrow video release, so I eventually actually double featured it. I watched it back to back with itself with the commentary track, because Lee did the commentary and I had to watch that. I gave the film 2 stars. It's obviously not great. We know this isn't a good film. I respect it for its production design and like technical landscape for how they filmed it. Amazing stuff. The first act was interesting. It loses itself in the second act, and by the third act, I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? I don't think it's terrible. It's not the worst film ever made. It's just not a great sequel, and it does what I want from a sequel, where it's not a remake of the original, but then it becomes a remake of the original by the end of it. I'm like, no, why did you do that? You were doing so well. It's got some stupid ass stuff though. I love it how this is the one where they verbally say Pazuzu, and apparently people mocked the shit out of that, even though it was written in the original novelization of the book. Nevertheless, or novelization of the film, but because they never say it in the first film. And I knew Pazuzu, the name, for ages, even before I watched the original film, and I never realized that they never said it in the movie. But yeah, obviously the first one's a masterpiece, and this one's just not great. And the third one, a near masterpiece. So, yeah, it's just a mess that could have been a lot better, but unfortunately is just this. And I did watch the long version, the premiere 2-hour long version, and it was just okay. Then I watched All the Colours of the Dark. I was going to watch a film called The Evil, ended up going for another Italian film, which I think, no, just because I could. It was a Sergio Martino. I've seen a bunch of his earlier this year for my Gialloary, which is where I watched 29 Giallo films in 29 days for February, because it's 29 days in February. I don't know. I wanted to watch 29 Giallos. I had a bunch of them. This was on the Criterion channel. I gave it 2.5 stars. It just didn't click for me. I don't think it was what I wanted when I watched it. You know, I wanted your classic, murder mystery film, and instead this was a bunch of dream sequences. You don't know what's real, you don't know what's not real. I didn't like the way it was showcased. Sure, the acting is pretty good, and the story it's fine in its own sense. It just was not what I wanted, and it didn't click for me. So it's unfortunate, because I like Martino's other films, but yeah. But it was nice to see Edwidge Fenech and also Neves Navarro in it, so they were 2 of the leads, which was great. Obviously, there's a lot of sex and nudity and stuff, and the occasional violence, but yeah, it just didn't click. So I was very disappointed by that. I was like, damn, I really wanted this to be one of the last good banger outs to get it done, but as in to finish off my Hooptober, especially after having watched Exorcist 2. Holy shit! So it's definitely, if it clicks with you when you first watch it, you're like, yes, this is amazing. This is such beautiful imagery, all these kind of things. If the story works for you because it's constant dream sequences, if that works, then it works. It just didn't this time around because it wasn't what I really wanted to watch. So anyway, my last film, which I watched on my birthday because I'd planned it out like that, got to watch it with my partner because we've both been wanting to watch it for many, many, many moons. We watched Anna Biller's The Love Witch from 2016. I gave it 4 stars. That was great. It was a beautiful homage to 70s cinema. It was just... It was really nice. It was funny. It was cheeky. The pacing's awkward, unfortunately. It's probably the biggest letdown is that they could have trimmed it here and there. It's one of those things where it's yeah, they could have trimmed it, because it just drags, and you realize, my god, that we're only 5 more minutes into the movie and we've still got an hour left. Oh my god, it has that bad Wayne feeling on it for just how poor the pacing is, but the rest of it's wonderful. The acting is fantastic. The girl who plays the lead witch, the protagonist, the quintessential love witch, of course, is Samantha Robinson, and she is terrific. It has a fun cast. It has some great ideas. It's just the pacing lumbers it so much, but the production design, the cinematography, the music, so much, everything else carries the fuck out of this movie. So it's almost like they could just put in everything they wanted to and then didn't think to actually cut anything out. So, anyway, that was my Hooptober for 2024. 31 films. Not all of them were brand new watches, but I don't mind. The rewatches were still very much appreciated, mostly because some of them I kind of had to do that because I didn't have anything alternative to watch. But the end all be all, it's a great way to push yourself to watching films that you wouldn't usually watch, especially horror. Like last year, I did a bunch of torture porn stuff. Like I started last Hooptober with Martyrs. That was crazy. This year, probably not as crazy, but still relatively dark, relatively fucked up. But still some beautiful films, some really colorful films. And yeah, the fact that I kept convincing myself I gotta watch all these movies, I was still able to push myself. Even Demonia, I watched it on a day where I had done 8 hours of filming for my job, went to the cinema after it with friends to see a different film, and then came home and was like, I gotta watch Demonia, I gotta get it done. So yeah. So circumstance for circumstance, the only day I really missed was the 1st of October where I watched Megalopolis. And that's not a horror film, but because I double featured the night before, I was okay with it. I had myself planned out, it was all good, I still pushed myself, and I did this. So yeah, I'm happy about that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what films you would like to watch for your Hooptober, or if you do a Hooptober, let me know down below. If you did it on Letterboxd, shoot me a link, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, see you guys next time. Adios.